How's it going, my bakers? Hope you're having a great day so far. Welcome back to the channel. Today's video has been a long time coming. It's a no-knead brioche, a proper brioche. So let's go to the kitchen and get started. My bread making style has changed completely this year. I don't use pre-ferments anymore and I've completely stopped kneading. And lately, I've been converting all my old recipes to be made without pre-ferments and without kneading. When it comes to making small batches of dough at home, I think kneading is a waste of time and energy. You can make high hydration ciabattas or super buttery brioche just by giving the dough a few folds. And this recipe really proves my point. Up until now, brioche was the only dough on my channel that used to require a mixer. I did try kneading it by hand, but it took so much time and effort, it wasn't worth it. I had never even considered making this using the no-knead method, but people kept asking me for it and I gave it a try. And it turned out way easier than I expected. And this isn't some watered down brioche recipe. It's full egg and 40% butter. It is the real deal. And now you will be able to make it without kneading. So let me show you how it's done. Here's what we're going to need. Some white bread flour, yeast, salt, sugar, butter and eggs. Because I wasn't sure how this would turn out, I made a smaller batch in this video. Usually my brioche recipes contain 500 grams of flour. This one is 250. But you can double the recipe if you want to. And you can use this no-knead recipe for any of the brioche recipes in the brioche playlist on my channel. And unlike the machine mixed brioche or the hand mixed brioche recipes, with this one you don't have to worry too much about temperature control. Because there's no kneading involved, the dough isn't going to warm up that much. In fact, the butter should be soft this time. Saying all that, we are aiming for a slightly lower final dough temperature than we normally would. That's why I'm using slightly below room temperature eggs. So usually the brioche dough goes in the fridge right after mixing. But I want this to be stretchy and foldable, so we're going to leave this sit at room temperature before we refrigerate it. That's why I'm lowering the final dough temperature, so we don't get too much rapid fermentation in the beginning. Okay, so in a large bowl, combine the eggs, the yeast, the salt, the sugar, and give it all a good whisking. You want to dissolve the salt and sugar completely before you add any other ingredients. The next step is slightly different from normal bread making. This is actually more of a cake making technique. We want to incorporate the butter in the dough without it splitting. And in order to make everything nice and smooth, first we need to add about 4 tablespoons of the flour and mix this to a paste. Once we get into this consistency, we can add the softened butter and it will mix very easily into the dough. And this butter has just been sitting out at room temperature. I didn't microwave it or anything crazy like that. Okay, add the butter and whisk until smooth. Once the mix is nice and uniform, you can add the remaining flour. And that's all there is to it. I don't think it could be any easier. From now, we'll just give the dough a few folds and we'll have brioche. It's funny, when I was making this, when I was filming the video, I wasn't even sure if it's going to work or not. The method for adding the butter just came to my mind because recently I had been making some cakes. And perhaps this recipe could be simplified even further, and maybe some of you can suggest something down in the comments. I just make things up as I go along, and if they work, they work. Right, the dough has been fully mixed. I have wet my hands with water to be able to handle it because it's very sticky at the moment. As you can see, it's super loose and it tears very easily, but that's normal. Let's place it in a clean bowl and take its temperature. As I said, I'm aiming for a slightly lower temperature this time, around 23 degrees Celsius, and that's around 73 degrees Fahrenheit. And as I mentioned before, I don't want this dough to set too soon, so we're leaving it out at room temperature for 20 minutes before the first fold. Give it a light dusting of flour, take it out the bowl, place the smooth side down, and then give it a regular fold. Flatten it out, fold the edge over the middle, going around in a circle until you reach point where you started. Then flip it smooth side up, tighten it against the table, and that's our first fold done. The dough is still pretty loose at this point, but that's normal. A few folds later, it will all come together. Okay, this can go back into the bowl, and now it'll go into the fridge to start chilling down. We'll still keep the folding intervals to 20 minutes, just to stay consistent. So cover your dough and chill it down for 20 minutes. After the first 20 minutes chilling, remove the dough from the fridge and give it a second fold. And already now, after just 40 minutes in total, and after just one fold, the dough feels completely different. It's not even that sticky anymore. I'm using a lot less flour this time, and on the next fold, I'll skip the flour altogether. But once again, pop the dough out on the table with the smooth side down, flatten it out, fold it over, keep repeating, you know the drill. Now back in the bowl it goes, cover it with a lid, pop it back into the fridge for another 20 minutes chilling. 20 minutes later, remove it again and give it one more fold. The thing with gluten is that it develops over time and not by mechanical action. Gluten strength and tightness are developed by folding and shaping, so we're letting the gluten create itself as time goes by, and we are making it nice and strong by performing all these folds. This is the third fold, and we're already not using any flour. The dough is not sticky anymore. It is nice and stretchy, but it also resists as I pull it. But we're still going to give it one more fold for good measure. So back in the fridge it goes for another 20 minutes. And after that, we're going to perform fold number 4, which is the final fold. And it goes the same way as all the previous folds. And now this dough is ready for the cold bulk fermentation. You can leave it in the fridge for 12 up to 24 hours or even longer. I left mine for 24. Okay, bulk fermentation over is the next day we can continue. From here, you can use this for any brioche recipe that you like. I'm just making a simple braided loaf, so if you want to do that, keep following the video. First, weigh your dough, then divide it into 3 equal pieces. After dividing, we need to pre-shape this dough. This is just going to ensure that it's nice and uniform, and it will make our job easier once we get the final shaping. We need to give this dough kind of a cylinder shape. So place it down in front of you horizontally, flatten it slightly, then fold the 2 edges in, fold the top third down, then turn the dough around, and then fold over the loose third. And you can also pinch the seam together lightly once you're done. And there you have it, a nice straight cylinder. After the pre-shaping, cover the dough up and leave it to rest for 30 minutes. During this time, the gluten will relax, and the dough will also warm up, making it easier to roll out. But before we start the final shaping, let's prep the baking tin. I'm just going to brush it with butter to ensure that it doesn't stick. I'm using a 1.5 pound or 680 gram tin. You could also make this in a 2 pound or 900 gram tin if you wanted to. Okay, let's do the final shaping. Dust the dough on the table lightly with flour, and then just roll it out nice and long. If you feel that there's an air bubble inside it, just slap it out and keep rolling. Roll the dough to about 30 centimeters or 1 foot long, and then taper the ends slightly. And finally, do a 3-strand braid. I've showed you how to make this plenty of times. Connect the 3 strands, then go over, under, and repeat. To make your loaf look nice and neat, fold the end bits underneath. Now place it in the greased tin, make sure it's nice and organized, cover it up, and leave it for the final proof. My kitchen was about 23 degrees Celsius or 73 degrees Fahrenheit, and it took me about 2.5 hours. During the final hour of fermentation, preheat the oven, 160 degrees Celsius, fan on, and that is 320 Fahrenheit for my American friends. This thing has puffed up beautifully, and if yours hasn't, leave it for longer. But if it's fermenting too rapidly, well then bake it sooner. But before you put it in the oven, give it a nice egg glaze, because that always makes things better. And to make it extra nice, leave it to dry for 5 minutes and then glaze it for the second time. The seeds are optional, but I just felt like decorating this loaf. You could also use different seeds or some pearl sugar perhaps. I'll leave all that up to you. Okay, this bad boy is ready for the oven. It'll take around 40 minutes to fully bake. If it's browning unevenly, just turn the loaf around halfway through the bake. But once it's all puffed up and beautifully golden brown all over, it's ready. And if you're not sure of the doneness of your loaf, take the temperature. If it reads above 94 degrees Celsius or 200 degrees Fahrenheit, it's ready. Leave it to rest in the tin for about 10 minutes before removing it. That way, you'll keep its shape a lot better. And just look at that, it came out perfectly. Brushing baking tin with butter really helps. But there you have it, that's how you make no-knead brioche. And you bet I'll be posting more recipes using this dough. This thing means a lot to me. I had never imagined making brioche with the no-knead method, but it turned out to be so easy. And just look at that crumb, it is extremely light and soft. You can see the gluten strands separating as I tear it apart. I really encourage you to try this recipe, and then tell me what do you think about kneading bread dough. I will definitely keep using the no-knead method, until I run into a recipe that beats me once again. And if that happens, I'll just find a way to make that recipe with the no-knead method. I really think it's the way forward. So what do you think of this recipe, and what do you think of the method? Let me know down in the comments. You want to see more videos like this one? Click over here. Subscribe to the channel, click right here. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.